The courtroom smelled like old wood and broken promises. Marisol Delacroix sat at the witness stand, her hands trembling in her lap. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the faces of everyone watching her, judging her. The opposing attorney stepped forward, his expensive shoes clicking against the marble floor. Ms. Delacroix, do you admit that you deliberately approached the Renfield family with the intention of fraud? Marisol's eyes found Callum in the gallery. He sat 3 rows back, his broad shoulders tense, his jaw tight, but his eyes were soft, gentle. He nodded once, slowly, and his hands moved in a single sign. Truth. Marisol took a deep breath. Her voice was steady when she finally spoke. Everything began 6 months ago, in a coffee shop in Portland, when I took a chance and asked a stranger if I could sit with him. 6 months earlier. Late September in Portland meant gray skies and the smell of rain hanging in the air like a promise. The leaves on the trees along Southeast Morrison Street had just begun to turn, edges of gold creeping into the green, and Callum Renfield, 33 years old and feeling twice that age, sat at his usual corner table in Bramblewick's cafe, staring at the same inventory spreadsheet he had been pretending to work on for the past 45 minutes. His coffee had gone cold an hour ago. It tasted like regret now, bitter and stale, but he kept drinking it anyway because ordering another one meant interacting with another human being, and he did not have the energy for that today. He watched the couples at the tables around him, the friend groups laughing over shared plates of pastries. The easy way they touched each other's arms, leaned into conversations, existed in each other's orbits like it was the most natural thing in the world. Callum could not remember the last time anything had felt natural. 2 years. That was how long it had been since Eleonora died. Nora, he had always called her. His Nora. 2 years since the phone call from the hospital that had shattered his entire world into pieces so small, he was still finding shards of it embedded in his chest every time he tried to breathe. The thing about being a widower for 2 years was that people stopped checking on you after the first year. They assumed you were doing better. They assumed time healed everything. What they did not understand was that year 2 was somehow worse than year 1. The shock wore off, and you were left with just the plain, simple fact that the person you had built your entire life around was never coming back, and you had to figure out how to exist anyway. His phone buzzed. A text from his mother-in-law, Gwendolyn Ashford. Rosie is having a great time. She made cookies with me. Pick her up by 6? Callum typed back a quick confirmation and set the phone face down on the table. Every Saturday, his 7-year-old daughter Rosalie went to her grandmother's house. And every Saturday, Callum fled to this cafe because being alone in their house made him feel like he was drowning. The silence there was too loud. It echoed with all the conversations he would never have again, all the laughter that had died with Nora. At least here, surrounded by strangers, the loneliness felt less personal. He thought about Rosie, his brilliant, funny, stubborn little girl who had been born profoundly deaf and communicated in American Sign Language. Nora had been a speech therapist specializing in deaf education, so their whole house had always been bilingual, English and ASL, woven together like threads in a tapestry. Now it was just Callum and Rosie, signing to each other across the dinner table, filling the silence with their hands because their voices could not reach her. Last week, Rosie had asked him something that still kept him up at night. Daddy, when I grow up, will I become normal? Or will I be alone forever? He had not known what to say. The question had pierced through him like a blade made of ice. He still did not know what to say. His daughter was the only deaf child in her mainstream elementary school. She came home every day looking exhausted from trying to navigate a hearing world that was not built for her. She had never met a deaf adult outside of family members. And Callum was genuinely terrified that she was growing up believing that being deaf meant being isolated for the rest of her life. He was about to pack up his laptop and head home to the empty house when he noticed her. A woman standing about 10 feet away, holding a coffee cup and looking around the cafe with an expression on her face that he recognized immediately, because he saw it in the mirror every single morning. Pure loneliness, mixed with the kind of exhaustion that came from pretending you were fine when you were absolutely not. She had dark curly hair pulled back in a messy bun. She was wearing jeans and an oversized cardigan that swallowed her small frame. And there was a golden retriever sitting perfectly still beside her, wearing a vest that said "hearing dog" across the side. The woman scanned the whole cafe. Every table had at least two or three people talking and laughing. She took this deep breath, like she was gathering courage for something monumental. Then she walked straight toward his table. Callum looked down at his laptop quickly, figuring she was going to ask if the other chair was taken so she could borrow it for another table. But instead, she set her coffee down right across from him, and her hands started moving. Deliberate, clear, American Sign Language. Her hands shaped the words with a vulnerability that made Callum's chest ache. "I am alone. Can I join you?" She had this hopeful, terrified expression on her face, like she was fully expecting him to look confused, to shake his head, to do that thing hearing people did when they did not understand sign language. The awkward smile and the pointing somewhere else. Callum's brain took maybe half a second to process what was happening, and then his hands moved automatically. Muscle memory from 7 years of signing with Rosie every single day kicked in before his conscious mind could catch up. "Of course, please sit down. I am alone too." The woman's entire face transformed. Her mouth literally fell open. She almost knocked over her coffee cup. She sat down so fast it was like her legs had simply given out beneath her. Her hands were shaking when she signed back. "You know ASL. You can sign." Callum nodded and signed slowly, carefully. "My daughter is deaf. She is 7 years old. My late wife was a speech therapist who specialized in deaf education. Signing is pretty much my first language at home now." The woman pressed both hands against her mouth. Callum could see her eyes filling with tears, could see the way her shoulders started to shake with the effort of holding back a sob. She signed with trembling fingers. "I just moved to Portland 1 month ago for work. I have been here for 4 weeks, and you are literally the first person who has signed back to me. Everyone else either completely ignores me or they talk really slow and super loud, like I am stupid instead of just deaf." Callum felt his chest get tight. He had watched Rosie experience that exact same thing 100 times. People treating her like she was broken, incapable, less than, just because she could not hear. He signed carefully. "I am Callum Renfield. This is my table every Saturday afternoon. You are welcome to sit here whenever you want. You should not have to eat alone." The woman wiped her eyes and signed back. "I am Marisol Delacroix. I am 29 years old, a graphic designer, and I work from home, which means I basically never see another human being except my dog Finnegan. And thank you. Thank you for not making me feel like a weirdo for asking to sit with a complete stranger." They talked for the next 2 hours straight. Callum completely forgot about his inventory spreadsheet and his cold coffee, and the fact that he was supposed to be wallowing in grief. Because Marisol was funny and smart, and she got this light in her eyes when she signed about things she was passionate about. Her design work, her dog, the way Portland reminded her of the watercolor paintings her mother used to make before she died. She explained that she had been deaf since she was 4 years old after a bad case of meningitis. She had grown up in California but moved to Portland because her freelance work meant she could live anywhere, and she had wanted a fresh start somewhere. Nobody knew her story. When Callum asked why she needed a fresh start, Marisol hesitated, her hands stilled in her lap. She looked down at Finnegan, who pressed his warm body against her leg like he could sense her distress. "I needed to get away from some people." She signed finally. "It is a long story. Maybe someday I will tell you all of it." Callum did not push. He understood long stories. He understood the weight of things too heavy to explain to someone you had just met. Instead, he told her about the bookshop, Verse and Binding, 3 blocks away. Nora had helped him open it 6 years ago, back when they were young and stupid and thought love could conquer anything, including terrible business plans. Somehow the shop was still standing, even though half the time Callum could barely remember to order new inventory or pay invoices on time. Even though walking through those doors every morning felt like walking through a museum of everything he had lost. He told her about Rosie, how she was the only deaf kid in her mainstream elementary school, how she came home every day looking exhausted from trying to fit into a hearing world that was not built for her, how she had never met a deaf adult besides family members, how he was genuinely worried she was growing up thinking that being deaf meant being alone forever. Marisol's hands moved fast, passionate. Representation is so important. I did not meet a deaf adult who was successful and happy until I was 16 years old. And it literally changed my entire life. Because suddenly I could see a future for myself. Rosie needs that. She needs to see deaf people thriving, not just surviving. Something cracked open in Callum's chest. A tiny flicker of hope that had been sealed shut for 2 years. Before he could stop himself, he signed. She has a school fall festival next Saturday. I know this is absolutely crazy because we literally just met 2 hours ago. But would you maybe want to come and meet her? No pressure at all if that is too weird. I just think seeing you would mean the world to her. Marisol's eyes went wide. You want me to meet your daughter after knowing me for literally 2 hours? Callum signed back without hesitation. You are the first person in 2 years who has made me feel like I am not completely alone in the world. And Rosie desperately needs to meet someone like you. Someone who can show her that being deaf does not limit what she can become. So yeah, I know it is fast. But my gut is telling me you are exactly who we need right now. Marisol was crying openly now. She signed through her tears. I would absolutely love to meet Rosie. Thank you for trusting me with something that important. And Callum, thank you for being brave enough to sign back to me. You have no idea how much this conversation has meant. Callum signed. Thank you for being brave enough to walk up to a stranger and ask if you could sit down. That took serious courage. Marisol laughed, wiping her eyes. I was about 3 seconds away from chickening out. I stood there working up the nerve for like 5 minutes. They exchanged phone numbers and made plans for the following Saturday. When Marisol finally left the cafe with Finnegan trotting beside her, Callum sat there for another 10 minutes just staring at his phone. Her contact information saved under Marisol ASL, like he needed to remind himself she was real. He drove home that evening, and for the first time in 2 years, the empty house did not feel quite as suffocating. He pulled out his phone and texted Gwendolyn. I think I just met someone today. I do not know what it means yet, but I felt something I have not felt since Nora died. Is it okay that I am feeling this? The reply came back within 30 seconds. Nora would want you to feel alive again, sweetheart. Tell me about her. Callum typed slowly, his hands still trembling. She is deaf. She signed to me at the cafe asking if she could sit down, and I think Rosie really needs to meet her. He hit send and sat there on his couch in the quiet house, thinking that maybe, just maybe, life was about to get a little bit less lonely. The thought terrified him and filled him with hope in equal measure. Later that night, as Marisol walked into her small apartment on the east side of Portland, her phone buzzed with an incoming text message. She looked at the screen. The number was blocked, but she knew exactly who it was. The message was short. You cannot hide forever. I know where you are. Marisol's blood ran cold. Her hands shook as she deleted the message without responding. Finnegan pressed against her leg, whimpering softly, sensing her fear. She had been so careful. She had moved across state lines. She had changed her phone number twice. She had told no one from her old life where she was going. And still, he had found her. Prescott Vance Thornwood always found her. The fall festival was exactly the kind of wholesome chaos that Callum usually dreaded. Bouncy houses, face painting, a bake sale run by overly enthusiastic PTA moms who kept trying to get him to volunteer for things. But today, he could not focus on any of it, because Rosie was sitting alone on a bench near the playground, watching the other kids run and laugh in groups while she picked at the grass beneath her feet. She had made herself small and invisible. It was easier that way, Callum knew. Easier than trying to join in when nobody else knew how to talk to her. Easier than being the kid who always needed extra accommodations, extra explanations, extra everything. His heart actively broke watching his 7-year-old daughter sit there, glancing up every few seconds to see if any other kids would invite her to play. Knowing they would not, he was about to go sit with her when he saw Marisol walking across the field. Finnegan kept perfect pace beside her, his golden fur gleaming in the autumn sunlight. Marisol spotted Callum and waved, her face lighting up with a smile that made something in his chest flutter unexpectedly. But before he could wave back, Rosie noticed something. A woman signing to her father from 20 feet away. Rosie's whole body went rigid with attention. Her eyes grew wide. Her mouth fell open. And then she was running, sprinting across the grass so fast that Callum barely had time to react. She skidded to a stop right in front of Marisol, her small chest heaving, her hands already moving a mile a minute. "You are signing. You know ASL. Are you deaf? Are you really deaf like me?" Marisol knelt down so she was at Rosie's eye level. Her smile was warm and genuine as she signed back. "Hi, Rosie. I am Marisol. And yes, I am deaf, just like you. I have been deaf since I was 4 years old." "We are exactly the same." Rosie's mouth dropped open. She turned to look at Callum, her enormous brown eyes filled with something he had never seen before. Wonder, disbelief, hope. Her hands moved slowly, like she could not quite believe what she was signing. "Daddy, she is a grown-up and she is deaf. I did not know deaf grown-ups existed. I thought maybe I was the only one in the whole world. I thought when I grew up, I would just disappear." Callum felt like someone had punched him straight in the stomach. How had he failed his daughter so badly? How had she genuinely believed she was alone? That being deaf meant she could not grow up and have a normal life? He had to turn away for a second to collect himself, to blink back the tears that were suddenly burning in his eyes. When he turned back, Rosie had already grabbed Marisol's hand and was dragging her toward the bounce house. She was signing approximately 17 questions at once, asking about school and favorite books, and whether Finnegan could do tricks, and if being deaf meant Marisol could not drive a car, or have a job, or do all the things the other moms at school did. Marisol answered every single question with patience and enthusiasm. She signed about her graphic design work and her apartment and her car, and how being deaf had never stopped her from doing anything she wanted to do. And Rosie just soaked up every word like she had been dying of thirst, and Marisol was the first water she had seen in years. Other kids started wandering over because Finnegan was adorable and they wanted to pet him. Marisol taught them basic signs. "Hello, thank you, friend," and Rosie stood right next to her, looking proud as hell to finally be the expert on something instead of the kid who needed extra accommodations. 2 hours into the festival, Callum was standing by the lemonade stand, watching Marisol and Rosie play some game involving beanbags. Rosie was laughing this full-belly laugh he had not heard in forever. Marisol glanced over and caught him staring. She signed across the field. "Your daughter is incredible." Callum signed back. "So are you." And the look that passed between them made his chest feel too tight. After the festival wound down, they walked to the parking lot together. Rosie was holding both their hands and swinging between them, chattering about everything she had learned. She signed up at Marisol. "Can you come to our house for dinner? Please, please, please. I want to show you my room and my books. And Daddy is kind of a terrible cook, but we can order pizza." Marisol laughed and looked at Callum, who was clearly panicking a little. She signed. "How about I come over once a week and I can teach you both some new signs? Would Wednesday nights work?" Rosie literally jumped up and down. Callum mouthed the words, "Thank you," knowing Marisol could read lips perfectly. And just like that, Wednesday nights became their new routine. 6 weeks passed like water through open fingers. Marisol showed up every Wednesday at 6:30, always bringing some kind of dessert or snack. She taught them new signs. She brought books about deaf culture and deaf history. She showed Rosie YouTube videos of deaf artists and athletes and scientists doing incredible things. And Rosie transformed right before Callum's eyes. She started a sign language club at her school. She made 2 new friends who wanted to learn ASL. She came home every day buzzing with stories instead of exhausted from trying to fit into a world that was not built for her. The little girl who had once asked if she would disappear when she grew up now talked about becoming a veterinarian or a teacher or maybe even an astronaut. Because if Marisol could be a successful designer, then Rosie could be anything. But it was not just Rosie who was changing. One Wednesday night in late October, after Rosie had gone to bed, Callum and Marisol sat on the couch with mugs of tea that had gone cold while they signed about everything and nothing. Marisol's hands moved slowly. "Can I ask you something kind of personal?" Callum signed back. "You can ask me anything." She took a shaky breath before signing. "Do you ever feel guilty when you are happy? Like being okay somehow means you did not love the person you lost enough?" Callum's hands froze midair. He stared at her for a long moment before signing. Every single day, all the time. Yes. You feel that too? Marisol nodded. After my parents died, I was numb for almost 3 years. And then one day I realized I had laughed at something. And I immediately hated myself for it, like I had betrayed them by having one moment of joy. Callum moved closer on the couch without really thinking about it. That is exactly what it is like with Nora. And now with you being here, I feel something shifting, and it terrifies me. Because what if I am not supposed to be happy yet? What if 2 years is not long enough? Marisol's eyes were wet. What do you feel when I am here? Callum's hands were shaking when he signed back. Like I am waking up after being asleep for 2 years. Like the world has colors again instead of just gray. Like maybe I am allowed to be a person and not just Rosie's dad or Nora's widower. They were sitting so close now that Callum could see the exact pattern of brown and gold in Marisol's eyes. She signed. That is not a bad thing. Feeling alive again. Callum signed. It feels like cheating. And then they were leaning toward each other. Callum's brain was screaming at him, but his heart was pulling him forward. Their lips were maybe an inch apart, and then Callum jerked backwards so fast he nearly fell off the couch. His hands moved in messy, frantic signs. I cannot. I am not ready. I am so sorry, Marisol. She signed back immediately. Do not apologize. We do not have to rush anything. I am not going anywhere. I promise. Callum put his head in his hands. Marisol rubbed his back in small circles until his breathing evened out. When he finally looked up, he signed. You deserve someone who is not this broken. Marisol signed back. You are not broken. You are healing. There is a difference. Later that night, after Marisol had gone home, Callum accidentally saw her phone light up on the kitchen counter where she had left it. Dozens of text messages from a blocked number. The last one visible on the screen made his blood run cold. You cannot hide forever. I know exactly where you are now. And I know about him. A week later, Callum finally asked about the messages. They were sitting on the couch again after Rosie had gone to bed. Marisol's face went pale when he mentioned what he had seen. She was silent for a long time. Then her hands started moving. Slowly. Painfully. 3 years ago, I was in a relationship with a man named Prescott Vance Thornwood. He is a famous ear, nose, and throat doctor in San Francisco. Very wealthy, very connected, very charming. She paused, her hands trembling. At first, he seemed perfect. He learned ASL for me. He introduced me to high society. He made me feel like the luckiest woman in the world. Her face crumbled. But Prescott is a narcissist. He controlled everything. What I wore, who I talked to, where I went. He isolated me from all my friends. He told me I was lucky to have him because no one else would ever want someone who was deaf. He said I was damaged goods, that he was doing me a favor by being with me. Callum felt rage building in his chest, hot and sharp. Marisol continued. After my parents died in a plane crash 5 years ago, I had no one left. No family, no one to protect me. And Prescott used that. He said I needed him, that I was nothing without him. When I tried to leave, he threatened to destroy my career, to tell everyone I was mentally unstable, to ruin my entire life. She was crying now, tears streaming down her face. 2 months before I moved to Portland, I finally escaped. I ran. I changed my phone number twice. I told no one where I was going, but he found me anyway. He always finds me. She looked at Callum with terrified eyes. I should leave. I do not want to drag you and Rosie into my mess. Callum moved closer. He took her hands in his, stilling their trembling. He signed slowly, deliberately. You do not have to face this alone anymore. That is what family does. It was the first time he had used the word family with her. Marisol broke down sobbing, and Callum held her until the shaking stopped. Everything fell apart on November 2nd. Gwendolyn Ashford showed up at Callum's house without calling first. She walked into the kitchen and saw the photos on the refrigerator. Pictures of Marisol and Rosie together. Candid shots from their Wednesday nights. A selfie of all three of them making silly faces. Gwendolyn pointed at the photos, her voice cold as winter. Who is this woman? Rosie talks about her constantly. Marisol this and Marisol that. Who is she to you? Callum felt defensive immediately. She is a friend. She is deaf, and she has been mentoring Rosie. It has been really good for her. Gwendolyn's face went hard. You are replacing my daughter. You are replacing Nora with the first deaf woman you meet, using her to raise my granddaughter because it is easier than doing it yourself. Callum's voice came out sharper than he meant. I am not replacing anyone. Rosie needed a deaf role model, and Marisol has been incredible with her. Nora would have wanted this. Gwendolyn grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Nora was incredible. She learned an entire language for that child. Do not you dare erase her memory. She left before Callum could say anything else. That night he called Marisol. I need you to not come over for a while. I need space to figure some things out. The silence on the other end was deafening. Did I do something wrong? No, God, no, this is all me. I just need time. He paused. But Marisol, be careful. You said Prescott knows you are seeing someone. I do not know how he found out. I know, I will be careful. After he hung up, Callum sat on his kitchen floor and cried for the first time in months. 2 weeks went by without Marisol. Rosie was absolutely miserable, signing at Callum every single day. Why is Marisol not coming anymore? Did I do something wrong? Is she mad at me? Callum lied through his teeth. She is just really busy with work right now, baby. Rosie looked him dead in the eye, her small face suddenly ancient with understanding. You are lying. I can see it all over your face. You pushed her away, did you not? You got scared and you ran like you always do. Callum was completely floored that his 7-year-old could read him that accurately. On November 18th, while Callum was in the shower, Rosie grabbed his phone off the bathroom counter. She scrolled through until she found Marisol's contact and typed out a message. Please come to Thanksgiving dinner at our house. We need you. 2 o'clock on Thursday. She signed it with her father's name. Marisol responded within minutes. Are you sure, Callum? I do not want to intrude if you are not ready. Rosie typed back, pretending to be her father. I am sure, please come. I miss you. Marisol sent back a heart emoji. I will be there. Rosie deleted the entire text thread, put the phone back exactly where she found it, and smiled to herself. She had just fixed her daddy's mess. Thanksgiving Day arrived with the smell of burning turkey and the sound of Callum cursing in the kitchen. It was 1:45 in the afternoon, and he was making a complete disaster out of the mashed potatoes, while Rosie set the table for 2 people with that secretive little smile on her face. The doorbell rang. Their house had a flashing light system installed, so Rosie would know when someone was at the door. She took off sprinting before Callum could even put down the potato masher. By the time he got to the front hallway, Rosie had already thrown the door open. Marisol was standing on the porch holding a homemade pumpkin pie, with Finnegan sitting perfectly beside her in his service vest. She looked just as confused as Callum felt. Callum's hands moved automatically. What are you doing here? Marisol signed back, looking genuinely puzzled. You texted me 3 days ago, asking me to come for Thanksgiving. You said 2 o'clock. Callum pulled out his phone and scrolled through his messages with Marisol. There was nothing. No texts at all for 2 weeks. He turned around to look at Rosie, who was standing behind him, trying to look innocent and failing miserably. She signed with zero shame whatsoever. Oops, that was me. I took your phone and invited her because you were being dumb and scared. And Mommy would be really mad at you right now for pushing away someone who makes you happy, Callum signed. Rosalie Marie Renfield. What have I told you about taking my phone? Rosie crossed her arms. That sometimes 7-year-olds are smarter than their daddies, and you should listen to me more often. Now invite Marisol in before she leaves and you mess this up even more than you already have. She paused, her small face suddenly serious. You told me that being different does not mean being broken, but you act like your heart is broken forever. Your heart is not broken, Daddy. It just needs time to learn how to beat for more people. Callum stared at his daughter, this tiny human who saw right through him. He turned back to Marisol, still standing on the porch in the cold. She signed. It is Thanksgiving, and I was going to spend it alone in my apartment, eating frozen pizza. So unless you are actually kicking me out, I would really like to stay. Rosie grabbed Marisol's hand and pulled her inside before Callum could respond. And just like that, she was in his kitchen, helping him rescue dinner, while Rosie entertained herself in the living room with Finnegan. Callum signed while they worked. I owe you a massive apology for the last 2 weeks. My mother-in-law said some things that got in my head, and instead of talking to you about it, I just shut down and pushed you away. Marisol set down the knife she had been using to cut vegetables. What did she say to you? She said I was replacing Nora with you, that I was using you to parent Rosie because it was easier than doing it myself, that 2 years was not enough time to move on. Marisol's face hardened. First of all, I would never try to replace Nora, and you know that. Second, Rosie needed someone from her own community, not a parent substitute. And third, there is no expiration date on grief. You do not heal on anyone else's timeline. Callum felt tears pricking at his eyes. I feel guilty every single time I am happy around you. Like being okay means I did not love Nora enough. Marisol moved closer. Did Nora love you? Callum nodded. Then she would want you to actually live your life, not just survive it. That is what love is. The doorbell rang again. Callum frowned. They were not expecting anyone else. He walked to the front door and opened it, and his blood ran cold. A man stood on the porch, tall, late 30s, with the kind of expensive suit that cost more than Callum's monthly mortgage. Perfect hair, a watch that probably cost more than Callum's car, a smile that did not reach his eyes. Hello, I am Prescott. I am here to take Marisol home. He stepped inside without being invited, looking around the house with undisguised contempt. His eyes swept over the modest furniture, the family photos, the evidence of a life that was nothing like his world of wealth and power. Then he saw Marisol standing frozen in the kitchen doorway. Marisol's face went white. How did you find me? Prescott's smile widened. You used your real name for your freelance business. You kept the same email domain. You posted a photo on a client's website last month with a Portland coffee shop visible in the background. He laughed coldly. You made it easy, Marisol. You always do. His hands moved in perfect ASL. Did you really think you could hide from me? Did you think I would not find you? Callum stepped between them. She does not want to talk to you. Please leave. Prescott laughed, a cold, hollow sound. You do not know her. She is mentally unstable. She needs professional help. I am a doctor. I can help her. His eyes found Rosie standing in the hallway, half hidden behind the wall, her small face frightened. Oh, a deaf child too? How pathetic. 2 broken people and a broken child playing house. Callum's hands clenched into fists. Get out of my house now. Prescott's smile turned predatory. This is not over. You have no idea who I am. No idea what I am capable of. I have connections you cannot even imagine. Lawyers, judges, people who owe me favors. He looked at Marisol one more time. You belong to me. You always have. And you will come back. They always come back. He left without another word, but the threat hung in the air like poison. 1 week later, Callum received a letter from a law firm. Prescott Vance Thornwood was suing Marisol for fraud and intentional infliction of emotional distress. He claimed she had deliberately targeted the Renfield family as part of a scheme to manipulate a grieving widower. He had also filed a complaint with Child Protective Services, accusing Marisol of inappropriate contact with a disabled minor. The accusations were absurd, outrageous, completely fabricated. But Prescott had money. He had lawyers. He had power. And Marisol wanted to run. He wins. He always wins. He has money and lawyers and connections. I will leave Portland. I do not want Rosie dragged into this. I do not want her to have to testify or be examined or have her life torn apart because of me. Callum took her hands. You cannot run forever, and we will not let you run alone. Gwendolyn showed up that evening. She had heard about the lawsuit from Callum. He had called her, expecting anger, expecting blame, expecting her to say, I told you so. Instead, she sat down at the kitchen table and looked at Marisol for a long, silent moment. I lost my daughter. I know what it feels like to have someone try to take away the people you love, to feel powerless, to feel like the world is conspiring against you. She reached out and took Marisol's hand. I was wrong about you. I was so afraid of losing Nora's memory that I could not see what was right in front of me. You are not replacing my daughter. You are giving my granddaughter something I could never give her, a future she can believe in. Her voice cracked. Nora would have loved you for what you have done for Rosie. Marisol broke down crying. Gwendolyn, it turned out, had been a lawyer before she retired. A damn good one. She still had connections. She made phone calls, called in favors, reached out to old colleagues who now worked in family law and civil litigation. And Marisol remembered something. When I was still with Prescott, I was so scared no one would believe me. So I recorded some of our conversations. I have audio files of him threatening me, of him admitting he would destroy anyone I tried to be with, of him saying I belonged to him like property. It was exactly what they needed. Gwendolyn's contacts found two other women who had been harassed by Prescott in the past. Women whose complaints had been quietly settled with money and non-disclosure agreements. Women who had been silenced because they thought no one would believe them either. Both of them agreed to testify. For the first time since Prescott had appeared on the porch, Marisol felt something she had not felt in years. Hope. The courtroom was packed. Prescott sat at the plaintiff's table with a team of expensive lawyers in matching dark suits. He looked confident, smug, like a man who had never lost anything in his life and did not expect to start now. Marisol sat at the witness stand, her hands steady now, her voice clear. The opposing attorney tried to paint her as unstable, manipulative, a gold digger who had targeted a vulnerable widower and his disabled child. But then the audio recordings were played. The prosecutor pressed play on the first recording. Static. Then Prescott's voice, smooth and menacing. You think anyone will believe you over me? I am a respected physician. You are just a deaf woman with no family, no connections, no one who cares whether you live or die. Marisol's recorded voice came through, trembling but defiant. I am leaving, Prescott. I do not care what you do. If you leave, I will make sure no one ever hires you again. I will tell everyone you are mentally unstable. I will have you committed if I have to. I have doctor friends who owe me favors. One signature and you are locked away. The recording ended. The judge leaned forward, her expression unreadable. Is that your voice, Mr. Thornwood? Prescott's lawyer jumped up. Your Honor, these recordings were obtained without consent. Oregon is a one-party consent state, Counselor. The recordings are admissible. The judge turned back to Prescott. Answer the question. Prescott's jaw tightened. It was taken out of context. The second recording was even more damning. Prescott's voice again, this time angrier. You think you can date other people? You think any man will ever want you? I will destroy anyone who touches you. I will ruin their career, their family, their entire life. You belong to me. You will always belong to me. By the time the third recording played, several people in the gallery had their hands over their mouths. Callum watched Prescott's mask finally crack. The charming doctor facade crumbled, revealing the monster underneath. The two other women testified. They described the same pattern. The charm at the beginning, the isolation, the control, the threats. The way Prescott made them feel like they were crazy, like they were worthless, like no one would ever believe them. One of them broke down crying on the stand. I thought I was the only one. I thought no one would ever believe me. He told me that every day, that I was nothing, that no one cared about me. Prescott lost his composure. He stood up and started shouting at his own lawyers, his face red with rage. They are lying. All of them are lying. I am a respected physician. I save lives. You cannot do this to me. The judge slammed her gavel. Mr. Thornwood, sit down immediately or I will hold you in contempt. The verdict came quickly. The lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice. A permanent restraining order was issued. Prescott was referred for criminal investigation regarding the previous complaints that had been covered up with money and threats. When he was escorted out of the courtroom by security, he turned and looked at Marisol with pure hatred in his eyes. She did not look away. For the first time in 3 years, she stared right back at him, and he was the one who broke first. Outside the courthouse, the March air was crisp and clean. Spring was coming. You could smell it in the wind. Callum pulled Marisol into his arms and held her tight. Rosie and Gwendolyn stood beside them, Finnegan wagging his tail at their feet. Callum signed, his movements slow and deliberate. I love you, not because I pity you, not because we have both been through hard things. I love you because you were brave enough to walk up to a stranger in a coffee shop and ask if you could sit down. And that one question changed everything. Marisol signed back. tears streaming down her face. I love you too. You were the first person who saw me. Not my deafness, not my pain, just me. Rosie tugged on both their sleeves. She signed to Gwendolyn. Grandma, can Marisol stay with us forever? I promise I will still love Mommy forever too. But my heart has room for both of them. Gwendolyn was crying. Over the past 3 months, while the lawsuit was being prepared, she had asked Marisol to teach her ASL. Twice a week, the woman who had once accused Marisol of replacing her daughter sat at the kitchen table, learning the language her granddaughter spoke. She signed back now, her movements clumsy but earnest. I know, sweetheart. Your mommy would want that too. September 28th, exactly 1 year after they had first met. Callum told Marisol he was taking her somewhere special, but would not say where. When they pulled up in front of Bramblewick's cafe, she looked at him with confusion. Why are we here on a Saturday? This is our Sunday spot. Callum just smiled and led her inside, to the same corner table where she had walked up to him 1 year ago, where she had set down her coffee cup and signed 5 words that would change both of their lives. They sat down. He ordered coffee. She kept looking around like she was waiting for an explanation, and then Callum slid out of his chair. He got down on one knee right there in the middle of the cafe. He pulled out a ring, and his hands moved slowly, signing one-handed. Exactly 1 year ago, you walked up to this table where I was sitting alone, feeling sorry for myself. You asked a simple question that changed everything. You asked if you could join me. Marisol's hands flew to her mouth. Tears were streaming down her face. We do not have to be alone anymore. I do not want to be alone anymore. Marisol Delacroix, will you marry me? She nodded frantically, signing through her sobs. Yes. Yes. 1,000 times yes. The entire cafe erupted in applause. Patty, the owner who had watched them sit at that corner table week after week, came running over crying and hugging them both. I knew it. I knew from the first day she sat down that something special was happening. This is the best thing that has ever happened in my cafe. And then the door burst open and Rosie came sprinting in, with Gwendolyn right behind her. They had been waiting outside, part of the plan all along. Did she say yes, Daddy? Did she say yes? Callum laughed. She said yes. Rosie threw herself at Marisol, hugging her so tight it looked like she would never let go. I knew it. I told Grandma you would say yes. I told her. They got married the following April in the botanical gardens. The gardens were filled with spring flowers, the scent of roses and jasmine drifting through the warm afternoon air. White chairs lined the aisle, filled with friends from the bookshop, members of the deaf community they had built together, and colleagues who had watched Callum slowly come back to life over the past year. Rosie, now 8 years old, walked down the aisle first, scattering flower petals with the seriousness of someone performing brain surgery. Behind her, Finnegan trotted proudly, the rings glinting on his vest. When Marisol appeared at the end of the aisle, Callum forgot how to breathe. She wore a simple white dress that flowed around her like water. Her dark curls were loose around her shoulders, crowned with a circlet of small white flowers. She was not just beautiful, she was radiant. She was everything. She walked toward him, signing as she came. I am not alone anymore. Callum signed back, his hands trembling with emotion. Neither am I. The entire ceremony was conducted in American Sign Language, with a voice interpreter for the hearing guests. Gwendolyn sat in the front row holding a small framed photo of Nora against her heart. She was crying, but they were not sad tears. They were tears of healing, of letting go, of understanding that love was not a finite resource that ran out when you shared it. Callum's vows made everyone cry. You taught me that loving you does not erase loving Nora. It just means my heart grew big enough for both. You gave me permission to live again. You showed me that moving forward does not mean forgetting. It means honoring the people we lost by choosing to keep living fully and loving deeply. Marisol's vows broke whatever was left of the dry eyes in the audience. You saw me when I felt invisible. You gave me a family when I thought I would be alone forever. For 3 years, I believed what he told me, that I was damaged, that no one would ever want me, that I was lucky anyone paid attention to me at all. And then you signed back to me in a coffee shop and everything changed. I promised to love you and Rosie with everything I have. I promise to be brave enough to keep asking if I can join you every single day for the rest of our lives." Rosie stood between them, beaming with pride. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, she signed loudly. "If anyone says anything bad, I will throw flowers at them." Everyone laughed. And when Callum kissed Marisol for the first time as her husband, the applause was deafening. 2 years after the wedding, Callum, Marisol, and Rosie were closing up the bookshop on a Tuesday evening. Verse and binding had transformed over the past 2 years. The website Marisol had designed had brought in customers from all over the Pacific Northwest. The monthly deaf community meetups had grown from 5 people to 50. There was now an entire section dedicated to books about deaf culture, deaf history, deaf artists and authors and activists. Rosie was 10 now, confident and bright, leading the ASL club at her school like she had been born for it. She had won a regional speech competition last month, giving her entire presentation in sign language with a voice interpreter. The topic had been, "Why being different is a superpower." She had gotten a standing ovation. Marisol taught sign language classes twice a week at the shop, parents with deaf children, hearing adults who wanted to be better allies, teachers who wanted to communicate with their students. The classes were always full. They were walking to their car when a young woman stopped them on the sidewalk. She was maybe 19 or 20, with nervous eyes and hesitant hands. Her name, they would later learn, was Waverly. She had just graduated high school in a small town in Idaho, where she had been the only deaf person for 50 miles. She had moved to Portland 2 weeks ago, hoping to find a community, hoping to find people who understood her. She signed slowly, like she was afraid of taking up space. "Excuse me, I am sorry to bother you. I just moved to Portland 2 weeks ago. I do not know anyone here. I am so lonely. I saw you signing, and I just needed to talk to someone who would understand." Marisol's face lit up with recognition, with understanding, with memory. She had stood in the same place once, terrified and alone in a new city, gathering her courage to approach a stranger in a coffee shop. She signed, "I know exactly how that feels. I moved here almost 4 years ago and felt the exact same way." She gestured to Callum and Rosie. "We are about to go get dinner. Would you like to join us?" The young woman's face transformed from desperate to hopeful in half a second. Rosie grabbed her hand, her small fingers warm and certain. She signed with the confidence of someone who had learned the most important lesson life could teach. "Do not worry. My mom was alone once too. She walked up to my dad in a coffee shop and asked if she could sit with him. That is how our family started." With one brave question, she squeezed the young woman's hand. "Now you are part of that story too, and you are not alone anymore." They walked down the street together, all 4 of them, with Finnegan trotting alongside. Callum watched his wife pay forward the same kindness that someone had given her almost 4 years ago. The same courage she had shown when she walked up to a stranger and asked if she could sit down. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you are lonely and ask someone to let you in. Marisol had done that in a coffee shop in Portland, a simple question that changed 3 lives. "I am alone. Can I join you?" Those words had given a grieving widower permission to feel again. Those words had shown a little girl that her future was limitless. Those words had helped a woman escape the prison of fear and isolation she had been trapped in for years, and now they were changing another life. The circle continued, and that was what family meant.